Hello everyone! I want to take this time in this video to go over the Project One description for the course. So Project One is an online research guide, so it has two components to it. The first is to create interview questions to interview a librarian or your guidance counselor. You can choose one of the two. Week two, we will have an online chat set up on Wednesday and Thursday, and students will be able to go into a group online chat and talk with librarians to ask them questions and in order to complete their interview if they choose to interview a librarian. If you choose to interview your guidance counselor, you'll need to go and set up an appointment with your guidance counselor and conduct the interview that way. So I'm going to pull up the Project One description, which can be found in week one under Project One as well as in files in the Project One folder. All right, so in Project One, your personal research guide is an opportunity for you to begin to explore your academic profession, or as Swales will put it, as you'll read this week, discourse communities. And so what this is meant to do is to get you to start to think about the ways in which your academic discourse community thinks, believes, and knows. And so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking at Swale's 6 characteristics of a discourse community, and you're going to be using those as a framework to begin to explore through primary research. And so primary research is going and actually conducting research in real time. So like the interview would be primary research. And then also conducting secondary research, which we use by conducting research through things that have already been published or archived or whatever it may be. And so one thing that you'll want to consider when you're thinking about Project One is how can I go and research and look up information about how my discourse community researches, how they communicate, and how they research and communicate to accomplish particular goals, produce particular types of knowledge, and particular types of information for the field. And so you'll have to start thinking about your academic discourse community in a little bit of a different way. And that, for instance, if somebody is in the medical field, their academic discourse community produces quite a bit of heavy research, typically laboratory research, and it's very much encouraged or sorry, the word is losing me, or actually required that you publish research in the field. The academic discourse community of the medical profession primarily focuses on empirical information, and that means data, very objective hypotheses, and so on and so forth, and is very much dedicated to patient care, advancements of medical intervention or approaches in the field, whereas the field that I'm in is very heavily reliant on publication and research as well. The type of research and publications that my field looks at is very much theoretical and historical and very pedagogically based, meaning how is it that we teach students to learn? How do students learn? Our focus is on the individual, the brain, the way in which the brain thinks and interacts and works and acquires knowledge and uses that. It's also very interested in the importance of reading and writing for development of knowledge and these kinds of things. So different discourse communities see the world very differently, gather and produce very different types of communication and writing and research in order to accomplish the kinds of goals that that discourse community has for the members and the types of knowledge that it produces, the types of actions and the types of activities that the members of that discourse community are expected to engage in. And so this project is asking you just to kind of get a big picture of your academic discourse community and how that discourse community research, publishes, and accomplishes general kind of outcomes and goals for that community and what that will mean for you. What things will you have to learn? What knowledge or ideas will you have to believe and accept? What kinds of actions will you have to engage in when you're a member of the discourse community? And those kinds of things. So you're going to be reading Swale's the introduction to what is an academic discourse community, but Swale's, oops, I'm sorry, will list out six six characteristics of a discourse community. And so you'll see that this is in his article, but he has a discourse community has a broadly agreed set upon common public goals. And so that simply means, like when we were talking about the healthcare or medical field, the common public goals is to increase awareness and knowledge of medical interventions and approaches, and to deal with the patient or laboratories or diseases or sickness in order to treat or eradicate certain diseases, to educate people on the nature of certain illnesses and diseases, and so on and so forth. Two, a discourse community has mechanisms of intercommunication among its members, and that simply just means that they engage in communication on a variety of different levels. So in the medical discourse community, I listed off a few already. That would be research, it would be publication, it would be conferences, it would be emails, it would be patient reports, patient charts, nursing and doctor notes, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of ways in which members communicate amongst each other. And so what kinds of manners of communication do the members in your discourse community engage in? Three, a discourse community uses its participatory mechanisms primarily to provide information and feedback. So that simply means that the way that they communicate is framed around or completed in order to provide members in the field information that they need and to provide feedback on information that's produced. So it's not as if you communicate in a vacuum. It's not as if you research and publish something and it's left in a vacuum. It's there to provide new information or to provide feedback or critique or assessment on information that has been previously understood to be true or previously published or so forth. And so any type of communication in a discourse community has to be able to be completed and kind of acquired and used in order to provide information, to provide feedback so that they can continue to accomplish the goals of their academic discourse community. Four, a discourse community utilizes and possesses one or more genres in the communicative furtherance of its aims, and that again is linked to 2 and 3. So simply meaning genres, what does that mean? It means written forms of communication in order to provide information and feedback by writing, say, research articles or conference proposals or patient charts or assessment forms of patients or brochures for information about a particular type of illness or so forth. Number 5, while also having its own specific types of genres or types of writing that is produced within that discourse community, they also have specific lexis. And lexis is just a very fancy term for vocabulary. And so, for instance, as a nurse, you might say, this patient is on NPO. So you can only provide, whatever type of care that you can, but they can't eat or drink anything at the moment. NPO is a terminology used in the nursing field for nothing by mouth, essentially, right? Whereas in my field, like I said, like pedagogy or something to do with, mixed methods research or so forth, or this idea of rhetorical genre theory, these kinds of terms that I know and people in my field know, but if you're not a member of my field, you're probably going to have no clue what we're talking about. So the very specific vocabulary that one must acquire and use to be a member, an active member in the field. Number 6, there must be some relevant content and discursal experience. That simply means content is why am I taking these courses, reading these books, taking these tests, is to provide you with content knowledge necessary to be a member of the discourse community you're hoping to join. And then discursal expertise simply means discourse, the way that we talk, again, linked back to Lexis. You have to start thinking and talking and expressing yourself in a manner that's appropriate for members in that field, rather than just in layman's terms. So these 6 characteristics are characteristics required for discourse communities to exist and to thrive and to accomplish the kinds of like communication and knowledge and goals that they have for the field. And so you'll see that Project 1 is asking you to investigate that. All right. So what you'll be doing, as I said, is looking at Swale's 6 characteristics of discourse communities. And you're going to start looking and trying to find